Hello and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for November 25th, 2019. I'm Scott. I work for Adafruit on CircuitPython full-time. They are by far the biggest sponsor of CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a beginner-focused version of Python, which is an easy programming language, and we run it on microcontrollers, which are tiny little computers. The goal is to make it really easy to get coding on hardware. So this is our weekly meeting that goes at that is regularly at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on our Discord channel on Mondays. You can join the Discord by going to adafru.it/discord. That'll hop you in. We're in the text chat all week, but we're only in the voice chat usually during the meeting on Mondays. Everybody's welcome to attend. We're happy to hear what's going on within the CircuitPython world there. This meeting is recorded, so beware that if you are in the CircuitPython channel, the voice channel, we will be recording your voice, and we're recording the text in the CircuitPython text channel. Those recordings get posted to the Adafruit YouTube, which is youtube.com/Adafruit, and I tend to post them on Diode Zone as well if you want to try something that's not YouTube. Let's see, that's the recording stuff. We also post notes, so we have a notes document that's running on Google Docs, and as we go along, I will take time codes. So if you ever do miss a meeting, but you don't have the time to listen to the typical hour or so that it takes, you can always check the notes doc and skip around in the video to the parts that you want to listen to. This meeting is run in 5 parts. We first have a community news section that Phil will go over, which is kind of a mini version of our Python on Microcontrollers newsletter that goes out on Tuesdays. You can join that by going to adafruitdaily.com and subscribing there for all the news that's fit to print about Python and CircuitPython and MicroPython and all of that. After we have community news, we have a state of CircuitPython and its libraries, which is a statistical overview of the project. It's meant to kind of ground us in numbers. So we'll go over that. And then after that, we have Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance for us just to take a moment and say thank you to folks for the work that they've been doing. It's meant to complement Bug Reports, so giving us the space to say thank you to other folks. If you are in the voice channel, we do it as a round robin, so I will start and then we'll go through the list of folks. You can let us know where you're lurking, and then we'll just skip over you. If you do not want to speak, but you do have a Hug Report, you can tell us your text only and either drop them in the text channel itself or in the notes doc, and I will read it off for you. And then if you want to speak and do all that stuff, you can totally just wait to be called on, and we'll call on you, and you'll get a chance to speak. And then we have status updates after that, which is done as a round robin as well, so same rules apply. But this is a chance for you to give a couple minutes overview of both what you worked on in the last week and what you're working on in the coming week. It's a way for us to be kind of all on the same page about what's going on. And that's status updates. And then lastly, we have In the Weeds, which is a chance for us to just have any longer form sort of field any questions or discussions that we want to have based on that. So that's what In the Weeds is for. If you have topics for In the Weeds, hop on the notes doc and add them there. That's that way that when we get to that section, we kind of already know what topics we're going to talk about, and we don't have to wait to see if anybody has anything. So with that, let's get started and go to community news.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
My caller 10.
I have no idea.
Because you have the radio.
Because my radio voice. Yeah.
That's right. On WGET. Okay.
BLNKA. Blinka.
Yeah. Yeah, these radio jokes don't go over so well. All right, so in the community news this week, a little bit of reminder, CircuitPython 5.0 beta 0 is released. So if you want to help us test things out, we, of course, would love to hear about anything you run into here in the chat, but also pull requests, issues, and more.
It'll be time to update everything. Oh, boy. Yuck.
Hey, Charles, can you mute?
That was like a soundboard. That was also from Radio Days. Okay, next up, speaking of all the news that's fit to print, Lady 8 and I go to newsstands. There's some still left, and there's magazines. So we do a tour of like what's on the cover of magazines, what are people doing, and the thumbnail in Discord has one of the things that we were looking at. Wired has a cool cover, but we also saw Python has a ton of resources and more. Just not Python as a specific organization, just Python in general. And when you look at the newsstands, you'll start to see, and I'm going to add these photos here since the thumbnail didn't quite get it. You'll see there are lots and lots and lots and lots of magazines and books, and there are some familiar faces and names as well. So Sophie's wearable tech projects were there, Hackspace. That's all CircuitPython, Python on hardware, and then lots of Python coding books. So that's kind of interesting. Over the years, I think I've been doing this for maybe 15 years, taking pictures of what's on newsstands, and you can kind of see the different amounts of popularity with either programming language or it's something that gets released. I think Google has their game system out there, but this is something we've noticed for a while, so I wanted to get some photos about that. So we'll see. Maybe there'll be a CircuitPython magazine book type entity soon too. Oh, the Take Flight with Feather contest with DigiKey, Hackaday, and Adafruit is really taking flight. There are 33 entries altogether, and from what we were told, is one of the fastest number of entries in a contest that Hackaday has had so far. So if you have any type of hardware ideas, you don't even have to design the full thing. You can enter at hackaday.io, and I put the link in the chat. Speaking of newsstands, from the other thing I was posting about, Hackspace has their issue 25, and it's Maker Christmas. There is tons of CircuitPython in this issue and Python on hardware, from Adafruit stuff to all the different boards. We're almost up to 100 that are supported. Lots of stuff in there. So you can download it for free. You can put on a USB drive, give it as a gift. You can subscribe and you get a free Circuit Playground Express. You can also just buy a one-off copy depending on where you are on planet Earth. Lots of little bits of tweets and news from SuperCon. And one of the things, and we don't ask for this, we just kind of like see what happens. People get something with CircuitPython on it, and they're saying how easy it is. And that's really what we're going for. How easy it is, how simple it is, how fast it is, how easy it was just to plug it in, and you can just edit something right away. You didn't have to download anything. So all these things, that it's music to our ears, sometimes literally, but that's good validation on our efforts. On the newsletter that I'm working on, I posted a link to the videos that Andy Hirschfeld did while at Apple from in like 1983, when they were talking about, like, there wasn't really a mouse and it wasn't really easy to use computers, and the way they were talking about like how easy it was and how they were able to save so much time and do stuff, it sounded very familiar to when we talk about CircuitPython and like all the time you're saving and all the things you get to do, and like how you're just working on the important things. You're not wrestling with software. So anyways, I thought that was kind of neat, and that'll be in the newsletter as well. We're on Hackaday. This is neat. There's all these little sculpture clocks and sculptures that people are making with wires, and they're using feather. So that's kind of a cute one. If you have stuff like that, let us know, because we like to. There's the eyeball portion, and it has little eyes, but there's also the physical portion of it, and those are fun for people to see that it's not just code. You can also do things like crafts. Embedded computing design. They had a roundup of SuperCon, and I think it was Jeremy who was there. Had a nice quote. Scott was introduced as pretty much being CircuitPython. Congratulations, Scott. The language that was used to program the Adafruit Edge badge. The badges were conveniently set up so when plugged in, you can open up programs such as text editor and make modifications. So that was kind of nice to see. Another thing in the community, probably remember Max. Max does all sorts of Python and hardware in space, and Max teaches at Stanford, and they have the SAM32. There is a whole new batch of them that they just released. You can see them on Twitter, and I also link to this. You can build your own. It's completely open source, and they have a ton of resources for anyone to make them themselves. Oh, cool. A little rendering on Discord to a cat. one of our favorite open source hardware companies, Electronics Cat, is working on a Bast WAN with SMR34 compatible with CircuitPython. So that's a new upcoming board. I put that in the coming soon section. And Deshipu showed off a new Pew Pew at an event just a couple days ago. So you can check that out. And I wanted to wish everyone happy holidays. It's coming up. We're still going to be doing all of our shows. So show and tell on Wednesday, Ask an Engineer on Wednesdays. Noah and Pager are still doing their show. We're still going to be doing the newsletter this week and next week and all the way through the holidays. So please, you can add us, or you can open up an issue or a PR, and we will add any Python on hardware news. And that is the community news.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Always really cool to see all the things that are happening. And for the record, I'm not the person that introduces myself as the CircuitPython guy. That was primarily Paul from Teensy. He was like, "Yeah, you're basically CircuitPython." I mean, well, no, I started it, but no, not
you're
anymore.
more than that. You're all the sum is greater than the pieces.
Yeah, CircuitPython is much bigger than just me for sure.
Yeah, sometimes someone just points at me and says, "Hey, Adafruit," and I'm just like, "Well, yeah, no."
No, but
All right.
But that just goes to show you don't really understand what it is.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott.
Cool. Thanks, Phil. Okay, let's go to state of CircuitPython and libraries. So as I said earlier, this is kind of a statistic objective view of the health of the project, meant to really ground us in how things are going, rather than just all of our good feelings, which are great as well, but we'll get to those later. So overall, in terms of statistics, we had 21 pull requests merged from 9 different authors. So thank you to all the authors there. A couple folks who look new to me, Tayden, Johannes, and CBYR2401 look like all new contributors. Rafa Gould, I think, is relatively new. Did the Korean translations for a long, long time. And it sat there. And thanks to Jeff Epler, we got those in. So thanks to you both. We had 6 reviewers, Katney, Dan, Lydia, myself, Jeff, and Melissa. So thank you to reviewers as well. As always, thank you to folks who review. It's kind of an unsung task. So it's always good to hop in. If you see a change, test it out. Let us know it works for you. It's just incredibly helpful. Okay, so issues-wise, we had 19 closed issues by 7 people and 7 opened by 7 people. So we're net down by 12, which is kind of amazing. We're not usually down by 12, so good job, everybody, on that. Really happy to see it. Overall, Dan released 5.0 Beta 0, which is super exciting. That has the new BLEIO changes in it, and it basically is getting us to the point where we're getting closer and closer to thinking of 5.0 as stable. Which is really exciting. We're doing some really cool stuff with BLE. So if you haven't played around with BLE or wireless in general, I highly recommend it. It's been super fun because I haven't really until now either. So please check it out. Let us know what you find. If you have random BLE devices around your house, we'd love to get CircuitPython working with them. So reach out and let us know what you got too. Okay, core-wise, this is where we get into a little bit more detail about what's going on the core C side of CircuitPython. We had 8 pull requests merged from 6 different authors. CBYR2401 and Rafa Gould are the new folks there, and we have 5 reviewers. So thanks again to our reviewers. We have 13 open pull requests. We've actually knocked out either by closing or merging the old ones. So our oldest PR now is only 113 days old, which is about, a third of a year or something. So great job on that. We have a lot more that are much fresher PRs. So keep up the good work there, getting PRs pulled in. Thank you to everybody who's done that. Issues-wise, we had 1 closed issue by a single person and 4 open by 4 people. So we're not helping the overall issue count at all. We have a total of 197 open issues, and you can check the notes doc for a link to that to see all those issues. We have active milestone breakdowns. I won't cover those except for the fact that we have 0 issues that are not assigned a milestone, which is pretty awesome as well. So good job, everybody there, kind of keeping track and grooming our issues. So thank you, everyone there. In the notes, we also have download stats by board and by language. So if you're curious about that, take a look. 5.0 beta 0 is the latest unstable release, and we've had 207 downloads of that. We've had over 19,000 downloads of 4.1.0. It's been out forever, but it's interesting to see that number still seems to be going up. So thanks to everybody there as well. And let's go to Katney for the library overview.
Thanks, Scott. So we had, across all the libraries, 13 pull requests merged by 5 authors, including Tayden and Johannes, and by 5 reviewers. We currently have 29 open pull requests. A few of them are fairly recent. A bunch of them are not, and we still need to put some effort into going through that and seeing what we want to do with the older PRs. We had 18 issues closed by 7 people and 3 open by 3 people, leaving us with 131 open issues. If you would like to see that list, you can go to circuitpython.org/contributing, where we have all kinds of library stuff available. If you are looking to contribute to CircuitPython, it's a great way to get started is to get involved with helping out with the libraries, either by reviewing PRs or checking out issues. We try to keep a list of good first issues for people who are new to things. And if you are new to things, we have guides on how to get started, and we are always available to help you. And we want to do that. So let us know, and we can try and find something that works for you to get started. We've had a number of library updates in the past week, which I will not go into in detail, but those are listed in the notes and are also listed on circuitpython.org/libraries. So any information you want about the libraries is available on circuitpython.org. So check that out if you're interested. And that is the state of the libraries.
Awesome. Thank you, Katney. Okay, let's go to Hug Reports. So Hug Reports is a chance for us to say thank you to folks for the work that they've been doing. The nice thing about having everybody kind of participate in Hug Reports as a round robin is that hopefully we don't miss very many people who are doing awesome things. I know that I, to some degree, want to make sure I hit everybody, but I also know that there's lots of other folks who are paying attention to what's going on and can do Hug Reports as well. So thank you to all the folks who participate here. And I'll just reiterate, this is done as a round robin. So if you are in the voice channel on the left, we will call on you unless you've let us know that you're either text only or lurking. Lurking means that you're just listening in. And we won't, you're just listening in. If you're text only, it means that you don't want to use your microphone. So I'll just read them off. Dan's smart and saying Nicholas is about to head out. So instead of starting, I will actually start with Nicholas.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yep. Sounds good.
Yeah. Awesome. It actually works for once.
Yeah.
Yay. So I'll start with my group hug. Group hug for everyone because, the world needs more hugs and things. And also Scott for the very quick turnaround on extended adverts for BLE so we can have longer radio messages. I was able to do the changes I needed to the radio module this evening. Only took about 20 minutes. So
Sweet.
So that's been the story of this little block of work is that I've just sat there going, how easy is this? This is really very, very far too easy. And so my update report is, let me scroll down so I can remember what I actually put. So last week I did a day and a little bit of work on adding a test suite to a CircuitPython module. Rather than explain everything that I did, I encapsulated it all into a blog post, the link for which is in the notes. So if you're interested to find out about the approach that I took, and I would love feedback on this, just go read the blog post and ping me on the channel. And this week, well, there we go. I said I did it. Took about half an hour, 10 minutes, whatever it was earlier this evening to do. And that's it from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you.
I'm glad it went out. It was so easy.
It was, sometimes when you're coding and you're working with an API and it just feels awkward. And sometimes it just feels like you're skiing down a mountainside and the wind's in your hair, and I'm getting all poetic now, but that's what it felt like. It was really easy to use. And even though there's not a lot of documentation, the code's written in such a way that it's, easy to figure out what's going on. So,
yeah, we're getting there.
There we go.
We got work to do, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, congratulations anyway. I'm going to have to go and pick up my kids from somewhere or other. So you folks have a great rest of your meeting.
Yeah,
Take care, folks.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas. So Rabbit just dropped out, and I believe Stargirl is... Oh, wait. I'll read off Summersoft here. Summersoft, who wasn't able to make the meeting, says, first and foremost, group hug, and happy Thanksgiving to anybody who is celebrating. I hope you enjoy any and all of your festivities and that you get to spend them with family and friends. So thank you, Summersoft. I should have taken a time code. I'm like totally off my time code game today. Okay, Stargirl is lurking, so we're at myself. So first and foremost, I wanted to just say a huge thank you to everybody at SupplyFrame and Hackaday for hosting an awesome conference. SuperCon was exactly as I had hoped. It was an amazing group of people doing all sorts of different things, and I basically spent 3 full days chatting with them about what they're working on and how CircuitPython could make what they're working on easier and all of that. So everybody, thanks to DigiKey. So huge hug report to DigiKey as well. They funded the Edge badges that everybody got at SuperCon. And it was really amazing to see people finally have the time to take a look at CircuitPython and just see how easy it is. I was walking around. I got mine and just changed my name. It had the sample code that Melissa created for like, hello, my name is. I changed my name to my name, of course. And like somebody saw me walk by and said, oh, you know how to change this. Can you help me? And I was like, yeah, sure. And like, oh, just plug it in and edit this file. And they were like, whoa, like it blew their mind. So we had a lot of that, and so thanks to everybody who's made CircuitPython that easy, and thank you to DigiKey for getting it in the hands of a bunch of folks. In that note, thanks to Sedacious, Lady Ada, Maker Melissa, and John Park for helping out with folks who did have issues with their Edge badges. I was kind of surprised actually to see how many people killed their file systems from using like Windows 10 and Sublime. So I'm curious to see if we'll actually be able to detect that drops when the fixes that Zuba's got into Windows go out. So thanks to all the folks who are helping those new CircuitPythonistas get up to speed. Thanks to Kattni for hosting all of the meetings while I was away. I know it. I believe last week didn't go super smoothly, but it all worked out. So thank you to Kattni for that, and also thank you for jumping in today because we have an internal meeting before this, and my like internet died right as that was happening, and I was like, oh dear, like Kattni, can you cover for me again? I was like, oh, so it's so awesome. Thank you, Kattni, for it makes my life so much better knowing that you're willing to hop into that. So thank you to that. And then lastly, a thank you to Baby Grimes. Just showed up on GitHub and found and fixed an issue with the GC long living stuff that we do, where if you freeze a file in and then import it, it crashes trying to actually long live code that lives outside of the heap. So they found and fixed that. So thanks to Baby Grimes for that. And with that, let's circle around to Anne.
Good afternoon, everybody. Except Nicholas is good evening. I want to thank Kattni too. She's been shouldering a lot of work, and she's just a trooper. And big hug to her. To Phil, who capped us at the top of the hour. He did the CircuitPython newsletter, and it was, I think, the biggest yet. I judge them not by like length, but how many images that he puts in them, and it was 97 images. So it was a huge issue, and I think what made it really great was all of the participation at the super conference, Scott, that you were talking about. I apologize I didn't go, but it was wonderful on my end watching you all in near real time on social media, just meeting people and making quick hacks. I'll give a hug to Maker Melissa, who worked with Emily on their badge hacks. I mean, that was brilliant. I mean, and then a group hug to everybody. I mean, the community does so much, and we really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. Okay, is Blinka around? We have a Blinka in our voice chat. Haven't heard anything. Okay, let's... Blinka's the backup recording. Nice. Awesome. Okay, thank you, Blinka, then. Thanks for being a backup. Okay, Brent is text only, so I'll read off for Brent. Brent says, group hug to everyone for working on and with CircuitPython, and welcome back to me. So thank you, Brent. Carter and C. Grover are lurking, so let's go to Charles.
Just a good old group hug. And I watched a lot of the social media also, and I found it very interesting what was going on at SuperCon. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. All right, let's go to Dan.
Okay, hi. So thanks to Jeff Epler, who's, again, last week I said he was diving in with 2 feet, and he's continuing to do that, finding all kind of bugs, including some figuring out why we had some old long-standing bugs, and submitting a bunch of PRs. Thank you very much. Thanks to Hero Effect, that's Lucian, who's continuing to add things to the STM32 port and fixing some things when bugs are found. Thanks to Antonio, who's our BLE app developer, and TAC, who are working with me and Scott on defining BLE services in a more Bluetooth kind of way rather than in a UART protocol kind of way. And you'll be seeing a new app, we hope soon, that will control things that way. And Hack is working on an Arduino version of that, of the client for that would run on the Circuit Playground Bluefruit. So stay tuned. And thanks again, as Scott mentioned, to Baby Grimes, who found an obscure and important bug and fixed it.
Woohoo. All right, thanks, Dan. Jacob T is lurking, so let's go to Jeff.
Hi, I especially want to thank Katney and Dan for continuing to get me oriented. And I want to thank Ayan Pawa and Rafa Gould for their patience while we worked on the PRs. And group hug for everyone who remembers to be grateful this holiday. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And yeah, just you've got something. Be grateful for it.
Totally. Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, from Jerry, who is missing the meeting, says just a group hug. So thanks, Jerry. And let's go to Katney.
All right, so I have a hug for Maker Melissa for providing a ton of support on Discord. Every time I'm popping in to see, make sure that everything is copacetic in the 3D printing chat, Melissa is helping somebody out with something. So that's always great to see. Thank you. Hug to Jerry for finding an issue in the servo example in the CircuitPython Essentials Guide. The example is fine, but the text includes a code snippet that is incorrect, and Jerry helped another user troubleshoot that and figured it out and let me know so I can go through and take care of that. Hug to Dan for all of the Bluefruit BLE Learn Guide code updates. With the recent release, we've had changes in how the code works, and so Dan's been going through and changing all of the code in the Learn Guides and getting that to those of us who wrote the guides so we can test them, so thank you for that. Thanks to Crayola for helping with refactoring the Circuit Playground library. And lastly, thanks to Dan and Crayola for helping with my PyCon tutorial proposal.
Awesome. Thank you, Katney. Okay, Kinger North dropped out and is lurking, so we'll go to Crayola.
My thanks this week are to, or hugs this week are to you, Scott, for the pointer about printing out coasters in GDB, which helped me immensely with figuring out what I was doing or how to solve the subclassing quirk that I ran into. And another thanks to, or hug to Dan and Jeff for their best wishes regarding my concussion recovery and group hug. There's so much going on, I can't keep up with it all.
Yeah, hopefully that'll get better and better. Bigger and bigger. All right, let's go to Melissa.
Hello. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, first of all, hug report to Lady Ada for getting the TensorFlow guide updates just in time for SuperCon. That's really helpful to be able to point people to. Another one for Lady Ada for reviewing a bunch of the tickets while a bunch of us were gone at SuperCon. Hug report to Sedacious, you, Scott, and John for all your help at SuperCon. I really enjoyed meeting up with you guys again. Hug report for Kattni for keeping things running while we were at SuperCon, and hug report to all the awesome folks I met at SuperCon, and I guess another hug report also for just DigiKey and SupplyFrame and everything. Like you said, they did an awesome job. It was just as fun as last year.
Sweet. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. That was hug reports. Let's go on to status updates. So status updates is a chance for everybody to talk a little bit about what you're working on in the last week or so, and then what you're planning on doing in the coming week. I have a feeling this might go a bit quick for those of us in the US because most of us have a short week. So I will start and take a time code. First and foremost, last week I got back from SuperCon on Monday. SuperCon was amazing. It was, like I said before, it was just a ton of people really interested in making things more accessible, making their hardware more accessible. And given that DigiKey gave them all the edge badges, they could see very clearly how quickly they could get going with CircuitPython, which is just, I think everybody was really impressed. So good job, everybody who's made that awesome. I got back on Monday. On Tuesday, I jumped back into the BLE world. I did the extended advertising for Nicholas because he had rocked out the radio stuff. So I added that support. It was pretty easy. I don't think there was too many issues to knock out. I got that in. And then the next thing I did was got pairing working again. Dan had gotten it working before, but I had broken it when I rejiggered stuff. So I got that, and sorry, I thought the cat was having an issue. So I got pairing working, and then I got Apple Notification Center service demo going, which is not checked in yet, but for those of you with iPhones, it basically allows you to list all of the notifications that show up on your home screen. So you can get references and IDs for all of those things, and then you can ask them things like, oh, what is the full message? What is the title? Which app did this come from? And when was it posted? That sort of thing. So that's going to be the foundations for some really cool stuff, and I've got to tweak that some more. But for now, I kind of like roughed it out, and we can refine it later. I then went from the ANCS stuff to BLE HAD, which again Dan had working, but I rejiggered stuff so it was broken. I managed to get it working on my Mac because I had like the problem turns out I would like swapped some of the hex digits in the report IDs. So once I fixed that, I got it working with Mac. I still haven't gotten it working with iOS though, which is just weird. And Dan was awesome, and I was bouncing ideas off him. And we have a couple other things to check with that that I will do today. And then I also want to poke around more with like having CircuitPython connect to other Bluetooth devices, like initiate the connection, which is known as like the central role. So I have like a Bluetooth mouse and a Bluetooth keyboard and a Bluetooth gamepad and two Sphero devices that I kind of like I'd love to control from CircuitPython. So I think tomorrow that's kind of what I'll jump into and see how far I can get. For those of us in the US, we have a holiday called Thanksgiving on Thursday, which tends to involve a lot of travel and stuff. So I'm not Personally, I'm not traveling, but my wife has Thursday and Friday off, so the plan is that I will not work on Thursday and Friday. I have a lot of just like house stuff to do, and then we're running a half marathon on Sunday, so we'll be busy with that. And I'm also baking an apple pie to bring to dinner on Thursday night, so I will be a little bit busy on Wednesday. I'm actually hoping to show the apple pie as my show and tell on Wednesday evening, which I think would be kind of funny. And then the last thing that I have for this week is John Parks doing a BLE related advertising project, and I just need to sync up with him and get him the code to get going on that. So that's my week, and let's circle around to Anne.
Okay, I'd like to go over a few things that are going on that you all might like to check out. Let's see. As I mentioned, the Python on hardware newsletter, or Python on microcontrollers. I should change that. It's an email you get once a week on Tuesdays, and it has the very latest news. I mean, mainly Phil is compiling it pretty much all weekend. So when you come into the first part of the week, it is the latest. It is not rehashed or anything. So we encourage you to consider subscribing at adafruitdaily.com. But no news is complete without contributions from the community. You can go to GitHub and do issues or pull requests to let us know some of the news, and then we can look at incorporating those. And that provides a lot better snapshot than we might get. So we encourage you to do that. If you're not really an email fan, I try to get a lot of stuff up on Reddit if you're a Reddit fan. So you can go to the CircuitPython subreddit and see what we've got. And let's see, oops. Edit, undo, okay. I'm doing this from a text file and I just wonked it. We really focus on our Twitter account, the Adafruit Twitter account. There's a CircuitPython Twitter account. You can totally follow it. But a lot of that is sent over from the Adafruit account. So if you want a broader picture, go ahead and subscribe to Adafruit, at Adafruit. Excuse me, the dog. But okay, that's all I got for today.
Thank you, Anne. I think your dog has more to add, though. Okay. Sorry, I do have a cold. Let's go. I will read off for Brent. Brent says, last week finished up work on a secret Adafruit project. More details in December. I got sick. Parentheses, darn you, winter. I totally relate to that. Did a bit of MATLAB work and remembered why I like Python. This week, continuing with that project and wrapping it up in the next week. Thank you, Brent. Okay, Carter and Seagrover are lurking, so we'll go to Charles.
Well, I don't have a whole lot, but I've started an interesting thing. I found an article about tearing apart an old toy keyboard and then using the keys as a and creating a MIDI your own MIDI controller out of it. So that's what I'm going to start tinkering with.
Could you post the article, please? I'd love to see that.
I'll find it again and post where it is.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to do BLE MIDI, and like that, something like that is perfect for adding BLE MIDI support.
Yeah, because it would be very useful to how to read like a 61 or a 49 or a 25 key keyboard,
right?
Without a whole lot of lines, and that's that's basic circuitry that I learned about, on a very primitive state when playing around with the old 7-segment LEDs. How to get multiple LEDs on one set of eight lines.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. That sounds awesome. Yeah, please link me
Have
to that.
have a good Thanksgiving.
You too, Charles.
To everybody.
All right, let's go to Dan.
Okay, so as Candy mentioned, we have a bunch of Learn guides already that we're using the tentative BLE API that we'd already introduced earlier in CircuitPython, but that was revised. Scott revised that to be more general. And so I've now gone through all the Learn guide code and updated it to the new API. And you'll gradually see the examples and code things changing in the guides as those get tested and the PRs get approved. And we'll update the Learn guide text too, which usually doesn't doesn't explain the code in detail, so there's not much revision to do. And the next thing I'm doing is that Lamora's asked me to try to talk to some, there are BLE light bulbs available. Some of them are just dim. Some of them have multiple colors. And so we have a Learn guide on such a light bulb, which is now unavailable. And so we need to try to find a substitute for that, at least one substitute for that light bulb, so that people can continue to try this out. So I'm going to be ordering some light bulbs and seeing what I can do with this over the next few days.
Nice, that sounds fun. I was just looking up at my light fixture going, I should put a different light in it. And then I could Bluetooth control it.
Well, I'll figure out which ones, but I'm not sure yet. There's too many to choose from.
I got to figure out what form factor this one is as well. Anyway, sounds cool. Thanks, Dan. Okay, Jacob's lurking, so we'll go to Jeff.
Hi, so last week I played around with the new build of the GCC compiler that targets ARM. CircuitPython builds with it, but some of the individual builds overflow unless we do things like really tinker at a low level with the inlining flags. So we may not be able to accept the PR, but at least we know, the code works. It's just a question of fitting on the boards. I worked on a PR to reduce the time in the background tasks. What's left on that is to check whether there's a regression in USB performance. And while trying to benchmark that, I ran into a bug that would crash on the NRF boards and fixed it. I think one of you merged that PR already today. If not, well, anyway. And I've been chasing down bugs in the I2S driver, and that led to 3 different PRs and a new fresh issue because of this max I2S amplifier. It doesn't really implement the I2S standard, and we may want to work around that in CircuitPython. So this week, Scott, I need your view on whether to continue working on that GCC 9 PR or just let it go. I need to benchmark the USB speed. I think maybe this PR2299 to create the code.py file, maybe it's ready to merge now. And then there's more stuff. I didn't expect to get the I2S stuff to PR status this morning based on how badly things went Friday. So that was like my major work for this week. But now I'm going to be looking for new stuff. I definitely won't work Thursday, but I'm still targeting 16 to 20 hours for the week. And my ongoing fun projects are I 3D printed a keyboard. And so the next step is to wire it all up. And so eventually I will have this custom keyboard running off of a Teensy. And next time around, I'll do it with CircuitPython. Maybe we'll figure out how to do a Bluetooth HID keyboard that'll, run for long enough that it's worth having as a wireless. And I'm also working on an edgelit digital display, which will be in the Featherwing format. And I need to finalize and order the PCB layout. I've got these really neat looking laser etched slides that I'm going to light up with individual LEDs so that hopefully you can show the numbers 0 through 9 and then make a clock out of it or something. And I will share the link to this keyboard design. It is someone else's. It's on Thingiverse.
Nice. I one of the folks that I've been seeing in these conferences like SuperCon is goes by Obra online, but is the person who does the like Keyboardio Model 1, and we were chatting about making a dev keyboard that runs CircuitPython. So I think he's really interested in that, and he wants to get to CircuitPython eventually. So I think having like a dev board, like a dev keyboard, kind of be the first target makes makes it easy for him to do it because it's not kind of like a out of the box sort of thing like his current one is. So
Right. Yeah. This point-to-point wiring is really a pain in the butt. I mean, I'm expecting this is like 8 or 10 sittings to finish it all up because my hands just don't like doing a lot of this at once.
right, yeah. I made a keyboard with a like straight up PCB behind it, and it was still just a lot of soldering all of the different keys down and the resistors or the diodes and stuff. But, cool. All right, thanks, Jeff. Let's go to Kattni.
All right. So last week, finished up a guide for the new e-ink gizmo. So that should be coming soon. Closed out a bunch of GitHub issues as per the state of CircuitPython and libraries. I updated 2 CPX examples to not use simple IO because it was easy to mimic what I was using simple IO for with a fairly simple function. And it means that there are no examples in the CPX repo anymore that require another library. So all of it will work
Nice.
with just the CPX lib. So that was good. And I refactored the entire Circuit Playground library and added support for Bluefruit, including 2 new features for the Bluefruit module that we had requested multiple times for CPX, but it just wasn't going to fit. I had closed out PR actually with the code. So it's fairly easy to add loud sound and sound level. So now you can print the sound level to use that as a threshold or something to that effect. And then you can use a loud sound with a configurable threshold as a input. So you can clap and make it light up or something to that effect. So that is complete. So basically it's the same concept as CPX, but it all works on the CPB now. So
Nice.
hooray. This week, a couple of fritzing objects. We have 2 new OLED displays with stemma. Well, they're not new, but they're redone with stemma connectors. So plug and play OLEDs. So I need to do fritzing objects for the stemma revisions, and then also if I get to it anyway, start the fritzing for the Feather e-ink friend, which is coming soon. It's not out yet, don't ask.
I think I wanted this.
You did, actually. It turns out it was a request from you. And your video disappeared in that meeting right before she showed it off.
Oh, yeah.
So she's got a panel of them, but they're not obviously ready yet.
Sweet. I'm so lazy.
Well, feathering your OLED's done. Or your inks rather. So I need to update possibly a couple of Bluefruit guides that may have changed because of the BLEIO updates that were released in beta 0. Dan updated all the code for all of us who wrote these guides, and it is up to us to test it on our setup and make sure that the guides reflect the changes. I'm pretty sure that the guides that I wrote were written with the fact that it was going to change in mind, so I feel like there's not actually a whole lot that I have to do, which is good. But it still need to go through and make sure that all those are set to go. There is the typo that Jerry found on the servo page in the Essentials guide, so I need to fix that. I'm going to be going through and updating the first guide I ever wrote, the Piano in the Key of Lime guide. Someone was running through it and needed some troubleshooting from one of our amazing community helpers on Discord, but it was brought to my attention that the guide is woefully out of date. And after reading through it, there's a lot of stuff that could be updated. So I'm going to take the time and do that and get it so it's pointing at our current installs and not referring to CircuitPython 2x, and so on and so forth. And also, while I'm doing that, I'm going to be testing it on CircuitPython on Bluefruit, just for the purpose of making sure that everything that we have works on Bluefruit, especially since we have the new version of the library, so it will be very easy to update the code. It's a short week this week for pretty much all of us. I should be around through Wednesday, and I'll be traveling over the weekend, but I will be back Monday. And that's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kattni. I thought of Piano in the Key of Lime when I was in the Florida Keys. Okay, let's go to Crayola.
So last week I continued working on PixelPuff subclassing support and finally got it to a point where I was able to submit a PR that doesn't break the build in the unit tests. However, it did involve changing the signature of one of the built-ins, and I would like to talk about that in the weed section if we have a chance. Not sure if there's any other way of doing it, but that's why we have the weed section to talk about it. And then I also did a small amount of work on getting NeoPixel and DotStar to work against the changed API for PixelBuff. This week, because it is a holiday week here, and I'm just taking a few days off from my Canadian work, because I'm in the US for Thanksgiving, I will use some of that time to work on PixelBuff again. One of the things you do when it's not your day job. So I'll be finishing, or I'll add iterable support to PixelBuff, add the fill in C to it, so a native fill, which will speed that up, and clean up the NeoPixel and DotStar subclasses and do some more testing, and maybe get to syncing the PyPixelBuff with the PixelBuff API.
Awesome. I'm excited to see that work, and if you do need stuff for me over the holidays, ping me and I'll take a look. I just won't be working on my own stuff, but happy to unblock you.
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Okay, Hierophect is not in the meeting, but added some notes, so I'll read those off. He says, last week, various bug fixes to SPI and worked on display I/O issues. New MCU definition for the STM32F401, which is used in the Meow bit. Added board definitions for the PyB nanoboard, which is STM32F411, and worked on a board definition for a quote-unquote black pill generic F411 board, and encountered some boot issues. This week, out for Thanksgiving, we'll check Discord for questions. So, thank you, Hierophect, and let's go to Maker Melissa.
Hello. Okay, so over the last couple weeks, I worked on testing and reviewing the Edge-Bedge code before SuperCon. I updated the fritzings on a couple of guides that were waiting on the beta release of CircuitPython. I started going through some libraries that were using display I/O to work, so they work in both CircuitPython 4 and 5. I'm still working on that, actually. I attended SuperCon. Got back from SuperCon on Tuesday, and I reviewed some PRs that were outstanding. I added the e-ink gizmo to the gizmo library for CircuitPython and wrote an example. I wrote the Arduino e-ink gizmo graphics test example. I added e-ink functionality to the image reader library. And then I had to go back and subclass that because it was making it so that was a dependency. And so I got that out. And I wrote the Arduino pages for the e-ink gizmo guide. This week I'm going to catch up on some outstanding PRs, update PyBadger code to handle external fonts better, as some people at SuperCon found out when they tried hacking it. And I'm going to go through and start updating the IS31FL 3731 CharliePlex guides.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. And last but not least, we have notes from Summersoft. Summersoft says, mostly travel prep and travel, bits and pieces of PhysiciEye's Azure functions last week, and this week more travel and more bits and pieces of PhysiciEye maybe. So thank you, Summersoft. And with that, that is status updates. Let's go to our last section where we get stuck in the weeds. It's called In the Weeds, and it's a chance for us to just have any longer form discussions about things that we'd like to talk about. So if you have any topics, please drop those in the notes doc. We have a few already, so I will hand it over to Jeff for the first one.
Hello. So with the GCC 9 PR and with the creating code.py PR, both of them were running up against code limits, particularly on PureKey M0 with the Chinese translation. And that uses 2,400 more bytes of flash than the English original. Something is going to have to give, and I saw a couple of possibilities. I don't know what possibilities anybody else sees or if there's a plan. One would be in 6x, you drop the translations for those boards altogether. You know, you're on an M0 non-express, it's resource constrained, you're going to live with English and like it. We could declare 5x the last version for it and continue to bug fix it for longer. So call 5.0 kind of an LTS. And then as far as other solutions that wouldn't degrade functionality, maybe we can put the translations on the file system, or maybe we can improve the compression and push this out a little bit further. So those are my ideas. I am curious what else anybody thinks, or if there's another solution I don't see.
So I would not drop translations. I think it's too valuable of a thing. But one thing that we could think about dropping is actually the console, like showing up on screens. So one of the things that costs a lot of space is storing the built-in font. And I think right now, if we have, if we have display IO, then we support that as well. Which I guess for the per key, we definitely don't.
Yeah, no, I don't think that has the font storage in it. I bet that the
Right.
delta is a lot bigger on the builds that do have fonts. But right now,
Right.
on an Express build, we're fine. On M4, we're fine. On NRF, we're fine. So it's really just the M0 parts.
Well, but that's not always been the case. Like, there's been a number of times where Dan and I have had to basically find space for the things that we want to do, and like, it's just the reality of adding stuff. Like I said this in the chat earlier, so like, it is unfortunate that for folks like the folks that you're helping with the new contributions that they run up against this, but the reality is that as we add code, we make it bigger. So I would say like I don't really like the idea of like having 5x be the last M0 version, because M0s are by far the most things that we've sold and supported. Kind of the way that I imagine it is just like, as we add new functionality, most of that's gated on like a module by module basis. And so new modules just don't end up in the M0 stuff. And therefore the size doesn't really change. That obviously didn't, like, display IO was one of those things that added a lot of space. But in general, I think this is going to be a problem there. I don't think there's anything we can do to avoid it, because even if we get to a point where we have free space, like, we end up filling it. So like, it's just a fact of life of that we're running so close on code size. One optimization that I know that we could do, one is we could compress queue strings. So the actual like queue string tables are not compressed, even though like all of our error messages are. So you could, if you look in one of the generated files by the compression, it actually tells you like how many bytes is taken up by uncompressed queue strings. That's something we could think about, and we could also think about compressing strings as we load them into RAM, which would be kind of cool too. And then the other thing that I was targeting for code size is all of the type objects that are created are actually pretty large. They're like 160 bytes per type or something, where a lot of the fields are all the same. So for example, like all of the different exception types are types that are stored in code, and there's like features like the protocol or whatever that is not used very often. So I was thinking about splitting the type object into two, where you basically say like this type has special features and like add a flag and then point to like the second struct that stores the special feature related things when you need it.
That's an interesting idea, especially since I just chased around a lot of code related to that.
Yeah. So you may have seen that there's kind of like a bunch of pointer fields that are usually the same, but in a few cases they're different.
Yeah, and it's probably worth exploring in a fair bit more detail, because there's a lot of things that look like they could be rearranged, moving away from direct compatibility with MicroPython and the internals, and free up a bunch of memory, clean up or change some of the calling conventions to make them easier, which might lead into part of in the weeds I wanted to talk about later.
Yeah, but we can always, if it really is in core MicroPython, we can always point it out to Damien and offer it a PR back upstream. I like Jeff's had some experience with that as well, and it doesn't always go quickly, but it's good. It's good to let him know what we're finding.
Yeah, and he will often see an angle that I just didn't, due to so much more in-depth experience with it, and that's a beneficial thing too. Yeah. And I was going to say that, well, when we get to you, Roy, I was going to tell you to talk to MicroPython, to talk to Damien.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff, let's go to your second one.
Sure. I want to talk about what reviewers prefer with the PRs. With the audio stuff, I ended up filing 3 PRs because I saw it as I found 3 different aspects that I saw to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Do people want to see 3 PRs and they're each touching on one aspect of a problem, or one PR that covered all 3 things? What's better? I mean, some of these PRs, they were like 2 lines, and maybe that's too small.
I don't think there's anything is too small.
If you're just fixing them all at the same time, I don't mind you putting them together, because just in terms of waiting around for the builds to finish.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I don't think there's if they're related in some way, or even if they're not, I've sometimes noticed something and just fixed it at the same time.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need to feel like you need to chop them up into logical units.
Right.
At the same time, if you have a simple one and you want to submit it, there's no reason not to go ahead and do that.
Right.
Because it should be fixed right away or something like that. So.
All right. Well, let me know anytime I'm just filing too many little PRs and making more noise than progress.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't worry me at all. Like, small PRs are easy to review and they're easy to get merged in. So, in general, I like small focus PRs, but as Dan says, like, don't go out of your way to do it. Like, Dan's done a lot of reviews for me, and it's like, there are always just random things that I've kind of come across as I'm doing something larger. I definitely aspire to do more small PRs, so I was happy with how last week went, but I tend to do larger stuff, which I want to be good about doing smaller PRs, so I don't think you'll ever have too many.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, and lastly, let's go to Crayola.
Okay, so one of the things, or I guess I should give a bit of context here. In implementing PixelBuff and making it so it could be a subclassable native and being able to have auto show work during index operations or subscr, I needed to be able to call back to a subclassed object or subclass's show method, or a method on a sub that was in MicroPython or CircuitPython, in order to call whatever driver is appropriate to output pixels. And the way that MicroPython and CircuitPython implement subscr is that that it may end up recursively calling using instance subscr, which will then call MP object subscr again. Mm-hmm. But it uses the class context when it does the instance subscr. Changing that broke the unit tests and actually had a bunch of behavior problems, so I had to revert that approach. So what I had tried doing initially was tracking, or basically abusing the object, or the MP object sentinel, or I can't remember which one it was, And then if it saw that as the value of the input argument, the first which is the type, basically, or the instance, you didn't know which when you get an NP object subscript call, that it would pass along both the instance that you're working with and the type to the NP object subscript recursive call. So you could try to work with it, but that itself had a bunch of other implications and just wasn't going to work out. So in the end, I ended up making it so that all of the subscript calls take a final or new argument at the end, which is the instance on which you're working, whether it's a class or an object or whatever, it doesn't matter. And that allowed me to make PixelBuff correctly work on the instance object when calling show because of an index operation without breaking unit tests.
Yay.
Downside is it adds one more argument to subscript operations, which are pretty much everywhere in Python, it turns out. And so I don't know what the performance implications are, and I don't know what the memory implications are of that change, but I can't see an easy way around it.
I haven't taken a look at the change yet, but it doesn't throw any red flags. Like, oh, sorry. Changing subscript seems reasonable to me. I just need to take a look at it.
There is one hack in my PR, which is that I didn't bother, or I made it so that I'd have to actually go look at it. There's one stub function, so I didn't have to change the signature. Probably should just go finish changing the signatures.
Yeah, I mean, I did that for all of the MP raise functions when we did the string compression. Like, it's fine.
The other possibility is a global cleanup so that the instance. I think we always need to pass in the type as well. I don't think there's a way around that.
Well, the instance the first entry should be its type, right?
Yes, it should be. But if you have, I'd have to go back and look. I don't recall if there was a way to avoid doing that. Maybe we can temporarily expand the signature, then go back and slowly clean up and test everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm fine just adding it. It would also be good to add a unit test for the new functionality as well.
Okay, I'll make a note to myself.
And yeah, I generally I don't unit test stuff, but if I'm actually changing the behavior of the VM to be like better, then I do try to actually add one. So in this case of like having subscript call a Python function would be a good test to have. Then it's clear like what functionality you're actually adding.
Right, that wouldn't be hard to add to the. I did find and figure out how to run the test suite for using the Unix port from Linux.
Yeah.
Had to do it in a VM, which leads to my next in the weeds if there's no more sort of guidance on the subscript signature change.
Well, I just wanted to ask, is there any way before the display IO changes to demonstrate that this problem or limitation exists? Or is the answer no, because nothing in a subscr ever did this kind of operation before?
So I didn't see anywhere else in the code where a subscript called back to a Python method as a side effect.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first side effect we have as far as I can see.
So is subscr called by getItem or something?
It's called.
Because I thought you would do this further up than subscr. That
I don't have my stack traces on.
Yeah, but this is an open question. I'm not asking you to answer this necessarily, but
I think subscr is the C native version that implements getItem and setItem stuff.
Yeah, it is.
It's not like C.
It's called in a lot of places.
Yeah, C doesn't match.
Okay, so it bypasses calling getItem to do the work.
It's also called. I think subscr is called. Subscr is the getItem, the native one, and it's called directly as Jeff just posted to the chat in the byte or the VM where it does the, and that's where a lot of my back traces were coming from, is directly after op getItem. Like it just immediately called subscr, and I think that even the native getIter helper uses subscript. Like a lot of things go through subscript because that's how you get like tuples and lists and arrays and strings. They all go through that interface.
But I thought that if you wanted to redefine what get item is, that
you can't on the C level. In the C level, the objects implement subscript.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in Python that's true, Dan, but in the C native object world, that is not true.
Okay.
Because of exactly this code.
Right. Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to know. Okay.
And that's how I ended up going down that rabbit hole.
Welcome to the weeds.
Indeed. And so this leads to tests, if you don't mind. So I'd like to figure out how I can do some automated tests for pixel buff so I can exercise it and its behavior. And the current unit test framework that I saw doesn't sort of give me a good idea of how I would go about building CircuitPython as opposed to MicroPython, because in the Unix directory it doesn't pull in any of the CircuitPython modules. In this case, I'd want to pull in pixel buff, build it into there, and be able to use it in a bunch of the test suites.
Right.
Do we have any existing test suites like that that are automated for things like display IO or groups or anything like that?
We do not.
Okay.
So I think in your case, because pixel buff is like not port specific, I think figuring out how to add it to the Unix port would be good, and then reusing that infrastructure is a good way to start. I would actually, my feeling for all the display IO stuff was like I would actually like to set up C level unit tests. I think that would be really beneficial. But yeah, we don't have a good testing story, and so it's kind of just a like, that's good intuition. Feel free to like try to help us establish what that is.
Yeah, so I think that you're right about adding it to the Unix port was what I was thinking we would do. I just didn't know if we were trying to keep that like it used to be in MicroPython.
No, I mean like MicroPython's Unix port is trying to be more than kind of what we use it for. It's trying to be like an alternative to CPython where we don't care about that at all. Like the only reason for us to maintain it is exactly like this unit testing, like the VM level unit testing stuff. So it's totally fine if you want to add a new module to it.
Okay.
Yeah, if in the end it resembled CircuitPython more closely, that will enable us to test various things. I don't know which ones, but hypothetically, we make a I2S testing thing or a audio I/O testing thing, and they would talk to virtual devices and let you run your code against them.
Right.
That would be pretty awesome. It would also be awesome if I could build that for Mac as well, but I'm not going to spend the time on that right now.
You couldn't get it running on Mac?
I don't recall what was failing about it. It was probably one of the libraries, and I just didn't want to spend the time on it.
Okay, so I've gotten the Unix running on Mac and testing and stuff. The one thing that I have to do, I think, is package config issue.
Yeah, it was at least a package config around. It was either
libffi, I think.
And there was also the XTLS.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of cleaning it in the right order. It's a little picky. Yeah. And then for the libffi stuff, you have to set an environment variable that tells it where brew installs it. But I can help you get that going.
Or in my case, I just clicked play on the VM that mounted the directory and didn't make in that.
Fancy. Cool. Well, yeah, I have gotten it working on Mac, so if you do want to get rid of the VM, just let me know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and with that, let's wrap up. It's been over an hour. Thank you to everybody who joined. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for November 25th, 2019. This is a weekly meeting we have at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join it by going to adafru.it/discord. We're in there all week. We're in the voice chat just during the meeting. This meeting has been recorded and will be posted on the Adafruit YouTube channel, youtube.com/Adafruit, along with podcast services. So if you want to subscribe and listen to just the voice, especially my radio voice this week, You can subscribe on most podcast services. I haven't heard from anybody who hasn't been able to find it. So if you're unable to find it on a podcast service, let us know and we'll get it on there as well. Next week should be as scheduled because it's not a holiday week. So we'll see. Let's see, is that it? I think that's it. Again, if you want to listen or want to receive the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter, you can go to adafruitdaily.com and sign up there. We had the community news section. It's just like 5 times that much interesting stuff. So I highly recommend it. A lot of work is put into it. And if you ever have ideas or articles for that, please let us know as well. It actually goes out on Tuesday exactly because we have this meeting on Monday where we can hear about all that stuff. So let us know all the cool stuff we're working on. We'd love to share that with more folks. And I think that's it. Thank you to everybody again for attending, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.